So the next is a panel discussion hosted by our very own Vaibhav from UnderDOGS Studio, also one of our key volunteers at IGDC. It's going to be on that one thing that everybody is talking about, guilds in Web3 and the role that it plays in the next gaming revolution. Over to Vaibhav. I would like to call on all the panelists, Vaibhav, Abhishek Anand, and Priya. Shrikar, Abhishek. Where's Shrikar? Yeah, I think Shrikar is just outside. There's a lot of networking going on, but we'll start. Yeah, it's all yours. Vaibhav, we'll start, Vaibhav. I'll get Shrikar. Shrikar, yeah. From Nama Blockchain, Shrikar Namurga, please give a big hand.
All right. Hello. Yeah. Thank you all for joining us on this panel. I'll quickly introduce you to the panel here. We have Shrikar Parashar from Guild Games, Priya Ratnam from Avisa Games Guild, and Abhishek Anand from IndieGG. In the interest of time, we'll directly jump onto the core concept of what a guild is. Right? We've been playing games for ages now, right? And I'm sure a lot of people here are curious about this one, term that's been used over and over again since the morning. So to start with, guys, can you elaborate what guild is in this space?
Sure. Let me start with that. So I think guilds have always been, sort of in place. If you go 10 years back, there were guilds at World of Warcraft where people could come together, socialize, they could raid, they could do all of that stuff. But there was no financial incentive built on top of those guilds, right? When games started getting built on blockchain, and when Axie Infinity sort of soared to all-time highs, what happened was the prices of those Axie became really, really expensive to an extent that each Axie was being charged more than $1,000, right? So for a regular user to be able to purchase such expensive Axies becomes really difficult. At that point of time, the very basic concept of guild was, hey, you want to play games? You want to buy Axies? Let me come in and buy those Axies for you. I have the money. I have the funds. I can buy those Axies and I can sort of just give it out to you. And in return, I'll charge 10% of that, 20% of that, 30% of that. There are different models that could be built around it. So that is the very fundamental model around which guilds started. From there, when eventually, players understood that they could get these assets and they can start participating in in-game economies and start earning some tokens or NFTs in the form of it, large players started getting aggregated around these guilds to an extent that guilds eventually started building player bases north of 100,000 players. Now, when that happened, guilds became the most important players in the gaming industry because they created immense value in the form of player base. So now games started coming to guilds and said, hey, you have 100,000 players, take some upside in my game, and in return, help me with my go-to-market strategy, right? Help me bootstrap my game. And at that point, guilds started investing in games and started acting as venture capitalists. For instance, at YGG India, we've invested in some 22 odd game titles so far, the likes of Mini Royale, Skyweaver. There are multiple games that are being built across AAA studios, AA studios, across multiple formats. When guilds started investing in games, started buying NFT assets or started buying tokens, they started building a really solid treasury around it. And eventually, the next step in guilds was where they're able to create some of the best gaming assets. They have a basket of some of the best gaming assets across multiple games, which are available globally, and they are able to onboard users to participate in games which they can compete at a global level. So someone from, let's say, a very small tier 3 city in India is able to simply get onboarded to a guild and participate in a game and earn financial incentives for investing time in the game. So that's how the evolution started. So from World of Warcraft to Axis getting very expensive to lending out these assets to eventually aggregating players to eventually working as venture capitalists because there's so much of value that got created there to eventually now having some of the hottest gaming assets. And if the future is games and games become a new asset class, right? Guilds will have the best assets in that sort of genre because they are now able to they eventually are able to sort of start investing in games from the get-go and buy some of the most high quality, lucrative, yield-bearing assets.
All right, all right. Priya and Shrikar, can you guys, add the pointers and also tell us how does a guild operate in India specifically?
Sure. So that's, I guess, he gave a great story of how guilds started in Web3, and the main difference why guilds are super important in Web3 is that if you look at in World of Warcraft and stuff like that, like okay, a guild is a community. You get together with like-minded people and you meet your teammates and have fun and so on and so forth. But in a guild, in a Web3 sense, it's not just about the aspect of community, right? But it's much more than that. It's community with a treasury, with a wallet, right? So that's the power of sort of having an open economy, which is what Web3 is all about, right? A game is not just a game in Web3, but it's an economy. And as a guild, we are economic participants in the game. And that way we are able to sort of curate players and also have this sort of economic leverage, which we can sort of take advantage of and use it in the game, and also give access to a lot of players. Like a lot of players in Axie, if you look at the Axie story, there's a beautiful documentary. I recommend everyone check it out. In that, you can actually see that most of Axie players had no idea about crypto or wallets or any of that stuff, right? They were completely new to crypto, but then through guilds, they were able to, through communities, they were able to get onboarded into these games because that's a big barrier in crypto in general, right? Creating a wallet and the seed phrase and all of the management tokens and stuff that goes on. And I guess as a guild, we basically focus on simplifying that process and making it as seamless as possible, and also educating the people. Like that's a big focus, I guess, for all guilds, is to educate people and get them on board and sort of make it a fun experience. So yeah, I guess if you're focusing on India, the main thing is, I would say, to simplify the process. You cannot have a person create a wallet and manage seed phrase. That still is not, compatible with a lot of people. And if you are looking at scaling, we need to sort of simplify that process for the end user, where he'll be able to sort of have a Web2 style experience, but in Web3. Right? So I guess that's super necessary in India. And also in India, the advantage is that we have an awesome infrastructure, right? We have UPI, we have great internet. I mean, like the internet really spoiled, right? We have the best internet, the cheapest internet, and we have good smartphone penetration. We have all the sort of building blocks that are needed for a massive adoption. And I guess we are really in a good place. And all we have to do is sort of educate people and make it really simple and sort of not talk about NFTs or whatever, like not try to complicate things, but also simplify it from his perspective, right? Where he's coming from, he might not have a knowledge of blockchain or what is an NFT, but you sort of educate it in a way that they understand and can relate to, and then also sort of simplify the whole process of onboarding and playing the game and also offboarding, right? So that's, I guess, how you get adoption in India.
Priya, would really love to understand your perspective also, and what is Avisa bringing on table for the users.
So would you like to know about how guilds operate, or would you like to know about the role of the guilds?
The role of the guilds would be
Okay.
something that we.
Hello everyone, let me introduce myself. I am Priya Ratnam, the CEO of Avisa Games Guild, which is one of the largest gaming guild from India, after the Indie GG, of course our inspiration. So we are also building a very good community over here with 15 plus playable games and 1500 scholars across the world. It's not only India. We concentrate on various demographics across the globe. So the role of guilds is actually one word to say, the guilds is one of the largest use case for the games, right? Everyone are talking over here about the NFTs, marketplaces. Social impact is more important, of course. Educating, that's what important for the guilds. However, when there is no game, there is no guilds. So guilds is not there, game also is not there. Because every individual needs to play the game, right? And which is not mandatory, right? So for the games, they need the guilds. They need the guilds because the guild itself is a massive community with so many players, thousands of players. When you see the Indie GG is having almost 6,000 scholars. We are having 1,500 scholars. Subsequently, it is helping the community in terms of economic growth of the country as well as providing a social impact. Impact is what important for the guilds. Okay, so guilds operate in a very smoother way because we help the players. For a layman, they will not have money. Say, for example, the age group of 15 to 18 years in India, as the advocate sir said, they don't have any employment, right? We as a guild are investing, are funding the players who are seeking for the financial aid. That's where we are making a lot of difference and creating the work opportunities to the community. That's where we are making the difference in terms of providing the economic growth as well as supporting to the families and the closed communities who are below poverty line. Subsequently, we are also helping the games to reach in a wider way in terms of promoting their games, right? Luckily, we have very good games even from India as well as in abroad. What I suggest is like we also need a lot of games from India, which is born in India, right? We don't need the games from the out of countries because we have super good talents over here in India. That's what. Thank you.
Yeah, you can have it. You mentioned about scholars, right? This is one of the terms that is widely used again in the guild community or the organizations, right? Can you touch base on what a scholar is and the kind of scholarship models that you guys are offering?
Sure. So the concept of scholarship is very simple. Think of it as getting scholarship for going to college. You do not have the financial, you're not in the financial state to, let's say, pay 30 lakh, 40 lakh to, let's say, do an MBA. You end up getting a scholarship from someone to do that course. Similarly, for you to participate in specific games, which are pay-to-play games, where you need to have certain NFTs, you need to buy certain NFTs, it becomes restrictive for players, for everyone. It does not make it a very egalitarian sort of society, which is where guilds come in. They say, hey, you cannot afford it, it's completely fine, let me buy those assets for you and let me lend it out to you. That's a very simple concept. So we buy assets and then we lend it out to people. People who use these assets to participate in games are called scholars. Eventually, I think over time what is happening around scholars is now scholars are able to create massive value because they are able to grow the network effect of the game, right? And these scholars eventually, because they are creating massive value, they are able to capture that value in the form of in-game token, which is what they earn for spending time in the game. And as guilds, we are able to sit on top of existing games and distribute value back to players who are creating value for the games through different sort of tokens, right? So we have north of 2,000 scholars. Just to give you some perspective, in the last 4 days, we've got more than 10,000 applications for our scholarship. Now that number in itself states that we will be able to sort of help 10,000 people participate in a global economy, regardless of where they come from, regardless of their age, regardless of their gender, regardless of whatever their background is, and earn an income. It could be primary income or it could be a supplemental income at the same level that someone sitting in US in some of the most developed countries is able to sort of take leverage of.
So I think there's a beautiful kind of underlying concept around this, right? That, yeah, the scholarship system, if you think about it, what is a scholar doing, right? He's able to get access to the games and someone else is doing the investing for him, right? But what he's giving is his time and effort. So here, kind of, if you think about it, play to earn and play and earn and all of the Web3 sort of gaming concepts is, I don't really think of it as just gaming, right? It's kind of like future of work. Because if you're going and giving your time and efforts and getting rewarded for it, I don't see how it's different from work, right? So it's a very beautiful system where the economic sort of risks or investments or upside can be done from a person with big pockets, such as the guild, and a person who does not have the economic means to sort of invest thousands of dollars and get into a game can give his time and efforts and get in return, monetize his time and monetize his efforts, which is really a mind-blowing concept, right? So sort of that's why I think that India is going to be a very big key adopter of this model, because we have a lot of time here. A lot of people here have a lot of time, and also you have the purchasing power parity, right? A $10 per day might not be anything for a guy sitting in the US, right? But a $10 per day can make a massive difference for a lot of people in India. So that's where I think the monetization of your time and efforts through this purchasing power parity can I think it's a mind-blowing concept that I think about every day. So.
Yeah, we've been hearing a lot of news, going on that the guilds are interested in studios who are building games on Web3, right? We've seen, companies attempting to acquire those studios or those games. What is the vision? I would like, each of you to, mention your vision, your company's vision towards this whole concept.
Yeah, let me take that first because we've invested in 22 odd game titles. So it's very simple. Yeah, today there are, for Web3 games, with guilds sort of emerging into this whole industry, the go-to-market strategies for guilds for games have changed. Two ways in which games can sort of go to the market. They either directly go to market and acquire users, or they go to guilds, which have a hyper-local approach, which have a loyal set of user base, which are regularly training, educating, onboarding users to understand basic concepts around Web3, to sort of help them cross the chasm from 0 to 1. Now, I think that is, guilds helping games with go-to-market strategies, guilds helping games with go-to-community strategies, guilds helping games with aggregating player bases of very, very, very loyal players, helping them create liquidity on their marketplace by constantly breeding and creating buying pressure of assets, and essentially being the hyper-local intelligence for that game in that country. I think that is where sort of guilds play a really integral role in development of games in that specific state or nation.
Yeah, so our vision is basically what I mentioned previously, right? Is that we think of gaming as sort of a what do you say, an entry point for this future of work that's going to come up, right? So 10 years from now, we won't have work as we think of it, right? We already moved from going to an office to working from home, and so in 10 years from now, we're just going to open up our phone, have a few tasks, complete it, and you're going to get paid. So we kind of have that vision in mind, and we see gaming as the best fit right now, but we're going to add even more. We basically want to add as many things as possible for the players or the people to earn from completing tasks, to learn to earn is one more interesting aspect as well, where you sort of learn certain things and then you get paid for it. So that's our vision, is that we are building the future of work. We don't really think of it as just gaming. We look at it as a broader vision, right? So yeah.
So when you ask the same question, um, for guilds, there is one more use case. Guilds is not only limited for play to earn. There are also different concepts in the market right now. When you see, move to earn is there. Just previous Met altcoin buzz, he have told about Step app. If you see the market value of the Step app right now, today it has been just $0.7, right? Just imagine when a scholar is having a scholarship of move to earn also, how much he'll be earning per month. It's easily more than $1,000. So that's where is our target is for the next 5 to 10 years. Guilds are not limited only for one concept. It has so many purposes, right? So we work for the purposes. There is other trends also coming in the market. We're not sure about the sustainable models. However, we want to give it a try because that's how we leverage the revenue of the scholars. That means the concept is move to earn is there, one more, and where to earn, meta fashions. So there are so many coming in the market every now and then. So we don't want to limit ourselves in one thing. And adding on to this, we are also building our own metaverse. So that I'll talk in the next concept, like next question, yeah? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, guys. It's very insightful. We are short of time, so we would like to open up for the questions if anybody has any questions. Yes. Excuse me.
Hi guys. I have a question around what's the role of guilds when it comes to Web 2 games or non-play to earn games. Do you have any role there as well?
For sure, for sure. So we've invested, let me give you an example of a game which is, it's not a Web 2 game, it's a Web 2.5 game. The game is off-chain, but they offer NFTs for people who progress within the game. Have you heard of Skyweaver? Right, so if anyone has played Skyweaver here, it's a non-play to earn game. What we are doing is we've put aside a 100,000 USD pool for our players who spend time into creating the network effect of the game. So like I said, guilds are able to sort of create go-to community strategies, and liquid guilds, which have a liquid token, are able to distribute value back to players who are able to spend time in these games. We are also incubating a lot of Web 2 games. So we've incubated multiple Web 2 games, and we sort of open up the entire ecosystem for them, be it in terms of what infrastructure should they build on, what kind of wallet should they use, what should the on-ramp and off-ramp look like, how should they build their economies, how should they sort of onboard players. So Web 2 games transitioning to Web 3 games, there are different sort of things that the game developer or the studios need to look at. And guilds become like an easiest sort of way for them to take an entry and open up multiple doors which are generally locked for them. And creating ability to create incentive layers on top of it and distribute value back for players. I think that these are some roles that guilds play.
Can I have a follow-up question on that?
Sure, for sure.
So just to further build on that, let's say there are global games which want to have a working GTM for them in India. Do you think, and these are Web 2 games with no NFT presence on them, do you think guilds also work with such players to help them better their go-to-market in India?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if they want to enter into India, we're speaking to multiple, AAA studios, which are Web 2 studios, and they have intent to build in Web 3. The problem is, having a hyperlocal presence. So let me give you an example. When Ubisoft decided to launch its NFT, there was so much of backlash against it, right? Now, any Web3 gaming studio, any Web2 gaming studio trying to launch in India might not be taken very easily, right? When you have a guild who has a player pool of 100,000 players, and these are people who are regularly being educated about, what Web3 games are, how it adds value to their life, how they're able to earn an income, how they're able to sort of participate in a very global sort of gaming ecosystem. It just becomes much more easier for them to take an entry into the market. So we're speaking to multiple games globally and trying to get them to sort of build in the Indian ecosystem through our support.
I have an answer for the same question. So if you have heard about hyperlayer games, right? So we have been partnered with a couple of platforms which is providing Web 2, traditional, as well as Web 3 games. So we cannot say there is no for traditional and Web 2 games. We as a guilds always welcome the games because the ultimate goal is to encourage the community, to encourage the scholar. And right now, if you see about the Axie Infinity, Manish was telling about 20 minutes playing the game and getting just like some small perks. Yeah, that's right. So right now, Axie Infinity is not having a version of free to play, right? 90% of people will come to play the games to earn the money, but there are 10% of people also who would love to have fun, right? So for those type of people, right now, most of the games are providing a free to play concept. So that is one thing I would like to put it. Thank you.
So,
Sure. Very quick one. As I understand from the way that you have explained this entire concept of guild, will it be more like a community or how we used to see as a fan base which was developing their own Facebook pages, especially when we talk about the Web 2 games? And that is where they were talking about what are the modifications that needs to be introduced within the game, how exactly they should be evolving the game, where are they invested, what is the next that they want to see. Is Guild giving that feedback to the game companies? And if there's no monetization, will Guild be still ready to invest into a test play for any game as well?
Yeah, absolutely. The answer is absolutely, right? So as a guild, we kind of have obviously we have the communities. So for example, if you go to a guild's Discord, you have communities for every game, right? And in that, you have educational content, you can find your peers and so on and so forth. And also, as a guild, we usually go and invest into the games early on. And also, in a Web3 sense, the games have something called a governance token, right? Where it's kind of like a quasi-stock, where if you have the governance token, you can vote on things and sort of influence the future of how it's built and so on and so forth. So we are still at early stages in terms of the implementation of that, but I think 2-3 years from now, even Axie, a lot of games are going to be coming up with governance systems where as a token holder of the governance token, you can actually go and influence the decision of where the game is going and how it's built, and you can sort of represent your community sentiment as a guild through this vote, right? I think that's where it's going. So.
And at what stage do you engage with the game developer? Once the game is already there in beta, or you see the gold build and that is where you want to go ahead with them, or it's an evolving process as you launch the game after that?
Very early stages. Today games sell NFTs 12 to 24 months before the game even goes live, because it is a way for them to raise funds and build their treasury to build games. So we start engaging with the games from the very early stages of them defining the white paper, all the way up to helping them create local communities around that game, to eventually the game getting launched and then helping them sort of onboarding users to that game.
Okay. Thank you.
you want to add something?
Yes. Hi, I have the answer for the same question. So for every game, before onboarding the game, before the partnership, we have a due diligence team, right? We 100% don't go with the community or the marketing or the value-added proposition that they get in the market. But we will take the NFTs, we will invest on the NFTs. We have a certain team. It's not only with my guild, with everyone's guild, the same process. So we do a trial basis. What will be the ROI, revenue in the returns of investment. At the end of 15th or 25th day, or maybe a month, it depends upon the guild to guild, we'll see how much is on an average the scholar is able to do, right? If the income is good, obviously we'll go for a very good partnerships. So this is what all the guilds follow before getting into the investment or any kind of partnership. A due diligence is must. Thank you.
Do we have any more questions? All right, I think we're done. Thank you, guys. Thank you for being on this panel. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.